Algebra Unit 11, Lesson 5, Note 6, Recursive Formulas, Day 2. So right up above here, we have the explicit and recursive formulas for arithmetic and geometric sequences. This set of notes is really just miscellaneous questions. So you have to figure out what you need to do for each and which formula to use. Okay? So here we go. Letter A, find the first 5 terms. Simple enough. We're given the recursive formula, a sub n equals a sub n minus 1 minus 7. Our first term is negative 11, and n is greater than or equal to 2. So our second term will be our previous term, which is our first term, minus 7. We know that the first term is negative 11, so this is really negative 11 minus 7, which is negative 18. Our next term, a sub 3, is our previous term, a sub 2 minus 7. Our previous term is negative 18. Negative 18 minus 7 is negative 25. Our fourth term is our third term, minus 7, which is negative 25 minus 7, or negative 32. One more, our fifth term is our fourth term, minus 7, our fourth term being negative 32. Subtract 7, we get negative 39, which makes our 5 terms, remember our first one was negative 11, negative 18, negative 25, negative 32, and negative 39. Letter C. Write a recursive formula. 7, 28, 112, 448. It definitely is increasing quite a bit, so I know this is going to be geometric, and the common ratio is times 4, so 4. Recursive formula, if you need to look at the top, go ahead and do so. Your recursive formula for geometric sequences is a sub n equals r times a sub n minus 1. So a sub n equals our common ratio of 4 times a sub n minus 1. Whenever we write recursive formulas, we need to give our parameters. So n is greater than or equal to 2, and our first term is 7. Letter E. Write an explicit formula from the given recursive formula. So we're given the recursive, we need to write an explicit. In order to do that, I need to know at least 3 terms. I have my first term. So to find my second term, it's 4 times my first term, which is 4 times 1, or 4. To find the third term, it's 4 times my second term, which is 4 times 4, or 16. Making our sequence 1, 4, 16. It is quadrupling, so I know it's a geometric sequence with a common ratio of 4. So now that I have that, I can go right to my explicit formula. So explicit for geometric is a sub n equals a sub 1 times r to the n minus 1. So it is a sub n equals 1 times 4 to the n minus 1. It's not necessary to keep that 1 there because it's a 1. So I can simply write it as a sub n equals 4 to the n minus 1, although the previous would also be correct. Letter G. If a sequence is defined recursively by f of 0 equals 2 and f of n plus 1 equals negative 2 times f of n plus 3, for n is greater than or equal to 0, then f of 2 is equal to 1. This is your formula right here. Okay? We know that f of 0 equals 2. So let's start with 0. F of 0 plus 1 equals negative 2 times f of 0 plus 3. Well, 0 plus 1 is 1. This equals negative 2 times that f of 0, which was 2, plus 3. So f of 1, negative 2 times 2 is negative 4, plus 3 is negative 1. I have to keep going because I want f of 2. So let's do one step further. Let's plug in 1 for n. F of 1 plus 1 equals negative 2 times f of 1 plus 3. 1 plus 1 is 2, so f of 2 equals negative 2 times our previous, which was negative 1, plus 3. F of 2 equals negative 2 times negative 1 is positive 2, plus 3 is 5. Therefore, 5 is our solution. Okay, let's do one more together. Let's look at J. Write a recursive and an explicit formula. So we have to do both. Well, I know it's geometric. The common ratio, it's dividing by 4, so the common ratio is 1/4. It doesn't matter which one you start with, so I will go ahead and start with the explicit. And the explicit formula is a sub n equals a sub 1 times r to the n minus 1. A sub n equals, my first term is 4. My common ratio is 1/4. So this right here, that's the explicit formula. I'll just put a notation. This is explicit. Let's find our recursive. Our recursive formula is a sub n equals r times a sub n minus 1. So a sub n equals our common ratio of 1/4 times a sub n minus 1. And we need to write our parameters. N is greater than or equal to 2, and our first term is 4. And this one's our recursive. Okay, finish the rest of these problems on your own. I did forget to mention for letter K, it wants you to write the explicit and recursive formulas for the following sequence. You have variables, but don't be alarmed. You have xz. Look at each variable separately. X becomes x squared, which means I multiplied by x, and z becomes z to the third, which means I multiplied by z squared. So here your common ratio is xz squared, and that should get you started for K.